And that's why Darian has 17 assholes.
Not quite, but getting there.
Mm. Speaking of assholes, how's my favorite asshole doing?
Tired. Had physical therapy today. The usual grind.
Mm.
But tomorrow I've got the training. I've got chiropractic and massage. So
Like, from the sounds of it, you're just like this world class athlete. You got PT,
uh,
chiropractor. You got a deep tissue massage therapist coming over too.
it's just not like a pleasant massage. Just one of those like kick your ass and make you feel like you're gonna die massages.
You gonna slide in some cryotherapy? Twice a month.
If that would help my back,
Mm.
but I got to get another MRI. So yeah, lovely.
Well, how'd that opinion go with the thing? Like
Which opinion with what thing?
you were getting an opinion from the other guy that was going to tell you.
We already talked about that. Yes, I have to have another surgery.
So you definitely 100%. All right.
100%.
And then how's the?
But I didn't have to have a surgery to find out I was going to have another surgery. Well, not surgery. I didn't have to get put under to find out I had to have another surgery.
Yeah.
So
How's the? How's the calorie counting or diet or whatever the fuck you want to call it? How's that going?
it's going fine. I'm the biggest thing for me is like watching my sodium intakes. My doctor last appointment was telling me I need to kind of start watching my blood pressure and so on. And salt is one of the big offenders, and to kind of keep an eye on that. And so most of my food tastes bland now.
Well, what's the deal with the sodium? Obviously, it's going to help you retain water. Like what else? What else is the deal with the sodium?
I don't know. It contributes to higher blood pressure.
That's true. Okay. Right on.
But
Well,
anyhow, welcome to the show.
yeah. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. I'm Jake.
I'm Jake.
Jake and Drake show. Uh, here to bring you quality content. Um, this week's discussion is going to be about, I guess. I don't know how to coin the phrase or the terminology. I guess it would be
Crotch
uh,
fruit.
what?
Crotch fruit.
Crotch fruit. What the fuck is crotch fruit?
Babies.
Oh, oh yeah. I guess it's basically along the lines of the parents' necessity of responsibility in cultural uprising of the progeny to affect future societal norms. Yeah,
How to raise your fucking crotch fruit.
yeah, yeah. Basically that. You sow the seed. Now you
The
have to
growth and
reap it.
cultivation of crotch fruit.
I like it. I went with the PC and you went with the slam bam. Thank you, ma'am. But yes, so interesting predicament we're in these days. I guess I think my biggest issue with what is it? You have the millennials, and then what's after the millennials? Gen Z,
Yep.
right? And then we're not on the next generation yet, right? We're not
We probably should be like tipping into that now.
right.
Like the ones born now, they're just not online crying.
Right. Okay. There we go. So they're coming into, but they're not here yet. So I guess basically millennials and Gen Z. But yeah, the whole sense of like entitlement, I guess. Like if you think of anything going wrong in the U.S., at some point I think it boils down to you owe me something. You the individual or you the state owe me something, and uh,
Generation Alpha, by the way, is what it's called.
oh, so there's already a generation.
Yep.
Okay, well hopefully they're alpha, because yeah, this pendulum has been swinging. But I don't know. I think there's a few things uh, I've seen as somebody observing other people raising children. Maybe you as well. Maybe you raising children. raising a child or whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna open the floor with you. Your thoughts, sir?
I think people need to not politicize their kids. I think people need to fucking teach their kids to be self-sufficient and not depend on the government and not depend on others, and that the individual is the most important minority in the world. And that's it.
So that's funny. Like, just gonna cross sectional that real quick. So when you refer to the individual, you're just referring to self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Self, the person with the unalienable rights. Um, Now, not that I want to play devil's advocate, but I do want to like lay out a smooth diagram for people to envision. But at some point, right, the self, like, where would you say that the rights, or what? I don't know, the collective, I guess. So you have the self and you have the collective. Is the collective the immediate family? Is it the extended family? Is it the neighborhood? Is it the city? Like, where does it, because like in your own household, self is, if you're still living with your parents, or if you have a wife or a husband or children, like self is kind of like, it's indigenous to that circle, right? Like your rights, your kids' rights, your wife's rights, your husband's rights, your whatever rights, those are like one and the same, right? Because you're in the same household, right? So would we say that I mean, does that make sense to you? Would you say that you're,
To an extent, but I
mm-hmm,
mean, each of those individuals have their own rights.
sure,
I mean, that the millennial kid or whatever, Gen Z kid can, if they're old enough, get the fuck out if they don't agree with how their parent, the rules of the household, so to speak,
mm-hmm,
because it's their right. So no, I don't see it as a collective right still.
mm-hmm,
The parental units can set their own household rules, but even then, like in some countries, you've got dad getting sued because he won't let his kid have gender transition until they're 18.
mm-hmm.
So, you know,
So okay, let me back up then. What is the collective right, or how would you look at the collective? Wherever we define collective, what is the collective right?
collective should have no rights. It's only should be only rights are individual.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what does the collective have if they don't have rights?
Individuals.
So there's nothing. I'm not gonna say guaranteed, but there's nothing as far as I don't want to say a privilege, or what is the term I want to use? I mean, the word I'm thinking of is a right, like as a collective. How about, let's say you live in a posh neighborhood, right? You live in a posh neighborhood and you have your individual rights, but as a maybe a collective right, as a member of that neighborhood, maybe a collective right to be considered is, you guys have like a right to your gated community for like security, or maybe you guys have a right to like a noise ordinance, or
That's not a right. Those would, if anything, those would be agreements you make when moving into a particular neighborhood,
Mhm.
and that homeowners association,
So it'd be
or
a collective agreement,
or laws
laws, rules.
or laws imposed upon people by the state.
Well, no, I don't want to say state. I just want to like this small example, a homeowners
But by
association.
by the state, not, when I say state, I don't mean a literal like state of Texas. I mean the state as in the local governing body,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So
the authority. How about that?
yeah. Okay. The authority. So essentially, we have this collective, and they have rules or laws or agreements, and
A social contract, if you will.
a social contract amongst each individual that they will do what they agree is the right thing or the thing. Uh, they'll they won't. I don't know. They won't keep their lawn unkempt. They won't
No,
let.
see, that's not those. See, those that's not even social contract. Those are like homeowners association rules
Hmm.
that you have to agree to, or by chance, a city ordinance or some bullshit like that.
Hmm.
Nah, those are bullshit.
Well, I would agree that like it's kind of bullshit, right?
What's your point?
Well, my point is that like you moved into this neighborhood, or you know, it's one thing if there's the homeowners association just sprung up in a random neighborhood, everybody voted for it, or majority of the people living there voted for it, and you're just kind of like shit out of luck, and I guess your alternative is to move. I guess what I'm saying
Now,
is,
the beautiful thing about homeowners association is they cannot compel you to be a member. It's if you, but it can be like if you buy a house that's part of the homeowners association, or if it's a planned neighborhood that is under an HOA, then that falls under there. But if you have this neighborhood and the neighbors get together and decide they want to put together a homeowners association, and you say, you know what, fuck that, I'm not participating.
mm-hmm,
You don't have to.
right? Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I guess. Well, what I'm saying is, I guess I needed to know what you would define. You would define. You wouldn't say it was a right. You would say it was like an agreement or a law as a collective,
A rule.
a rule, right? And then you go the bigger, grander scope. I guess from that you probably go to like maybe city, county, state, country kind of thing. But yeah, okay. Now that I've established that, so we're back at what you were saying: parenting, children, crotch crotch fruit. Hmm. What is going on with the parenting? Like why? What are trends that you see that I mean, are the parents not home? Are they home and they're not raising their kids? Do they not know how to raise their kids? Is it that maybe their
Social
parent
media.
social media?
I think social media is the one of the worst things for our civilization. I mean, the internet is wonderful, is beautiful, and I love it, but
Mm-hmm.
social media has probably destroyed more lives. I mean, they're talking about like Instagram for kids or some shit, and even the government is saying that's a really shitty idea.
Yeah, they made YouTube for kids. That was supposed to do something. I don't think it's really done much, but so do you think the advent of
YouTube for kids is a little different because you can like flag your content can be flagged kids safe, and then you have a child account that they can log on and watch whatever Veggie Tales or
mm-hmm.
children's safe programming.
So why would Instagram for kids be a bad idea?
For kids to start posting and trying to getting it ingrained to gain followers and shit. As far as I understand, YouTube still can't, kids still can't have YouTube accounts um on their own. Like they could be part of a parent's account or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding about the Instagram for kids is an account for children that would basically start teaching at a younger age, that likes are important, that social media clout, is what's important in life. And that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. I think on a biological level, I think that's a bad idea. Now that as soon as you said like the likes and stuff, is that I guess that's what drives people to continue using social media by all means. Like you post a picture, you get likes, you say something
Some
on.
people.
Well, some people, yeah, sure, but I mean, I think all people, but I think there's a differentiation between people that need it and people that are just like, I want to share this with people. I don't care if they like it or dislike it. I'm kind of indifferent. Kind of like you on your Twitter. Sometimes you just say shit, and sometimes you get likes, and sometimes you get retweets, and sometimes nothing, right? And that doesn't stop you from posting. That doesn't preclude you from having a good day, right? It's like, oh, well, I posted this really funny joke, and I think I think there is a motivation to put something out there, right? That's to share your
The reason, I
ideas.
mean, honestly, the only reason I still have my Twitter account is because there's a handful of friends there that I wouldn't have other contact with any other way. So that's
That's like,
pretty much it. And
mhm.
once I kind of am over that, I'm going to, I'm getting rid of Twitter too. I mean, it's kind of in my mental timeline to dump it, and along with a bunch of other online stuff, and just social media is terrible. Twitter, I mean, Twitter is great and it's terrible.
Right.
And there's the internet is, like I said, the internet is wonderful. And in the earlier day, back in the old days, you put up a website and you kind of have your shit, and and it's attached to you, so to speak, or your name or your persona.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have these platforms that you gotta, deal with. And now there's fucking, I don't even understand, what the fucking influencer is. They don't influence me except to like fucking block their shit or mute their name and all that.
Mm.
So I mean, I don't know what the fuck they're influencing other than like, oh, I'm wearing, if they're like are they salespeople? Is that what it is? Oh, I use Pantene hair fucking whatever.
Mm.
Oh, well, I just have my boyfriend jizz in my hair, whatever. Fuck that. It's completely idiotic.
No, I find that influencer and I find that title content creator. I find that very. I don't know. It's like uh, influencer, right? Like, what do you posted a picture of you on Instagram with makeup or with your booty showing or something, so you're influencing people, I guess. And I will say, I wanted to touch a point like what you were talking about with the kids is that you're when you're young. I just think about when we were kids, like your central nervous system doing its things and your feel goods, your was it dopamine, right? Your dopamine would come from normal interactions, which would be you made a friend, you hung out with your friend, you played some sports, maybe you guys played some video games, some Atari or some shit. Like there were things that you actually did in real life that gave you like
You
those
ran through the fucking neighborhood.
right, those little shots or spurts of dopamine, whatever the fuck it is. That's where you used to get it. And then you used to be outside and you would get like the vitamin D and you would get the feel goods from that. And that's essentially where your mental health would come from, right? So you have the mental health aspect where that's where your enjoyment and appreciation for life, because sometimes it was raining and you couldn't go outside, right? Or sometimes, your friend was grounded or the basketball court was closed. There were like things, or the library was closed. Whatever was your like main source of dopamine as a kid from like age 8 to like age 16, 18, like it came from interacting with the world physically. Like you physically had to experience the world. And in the same case of experiencing the world physically, like you experienced good and bad. It wasn't a 50-50, maybe it was like a 30-70 or 60-40, but like you experienced the world. So the library's closed. Oh, okay. And you got to experience that, but like with the social media, like the dopamine's always there, or the continuous, like all I had to do was post a picture of me scantily clad and I got a lot of likes and I feel good about myself. And like you've said in earlier podcasts, like the people just sitting behind the keyboards and there's the total anonymity. So I can, you know, sit behind my keyboard, sit behind my phone, and I can block things that I don't like. I don't have to experience them, and I can make life enjoyable for me 100% of the time.
You
Or,
can
or
build your bubble.
right. And essentially, what that does is like when you actually have to go and face reality, and things don't go the way you want them to, then it's very hard, especially at a later age. Like just think of like how that builds up. Like the first time you were disappointed and you found that it wasn't fair. Like you wanted ice cream for dessert because your buddy had ice cream for dessert, and your mom's like, no, you had McDonald's for lunch, or or something. Like you learned at a young age that you don't always get what you want. It's not always unicorns and rainbows. But with social media, I can get whatever I want on YouTube. I can get what I want on the Twitter, on the so yeah, I think on a psychological, biological sense, right? Because I think it ties in together. I think you make a really good point. Is the clout. I hide behind a keyboard and I hide behind a phone and I experience what I want to experience. And if I don't like it, I don't have to deal with it. But that's, essentially that's not life. At some point, you have to go outside and hopefully you have to go outside and get a job. Hopefully you have to experience a little hardship to build yourself. But I mean, is that really on the parent or is that really on the children though? Like, at what point do we hold the parents accountable for that? Are the parents in the same trap that they're just perpetuating to their children?
I think some are to an extent, but I think a lot more it's more that with the way society has gone with rising interest rates and higher cost of living, um, the need for dual income households and things like that, you're not seeing as much parental involvement. And the just like the TV was, the internet is an easy way to kind of pawn the kids off on something else. Oh yeah, go okay, go play your Xbox. Oh, go play on the computer, you know,
Mm,
kind of shit.
mm.
And then with all this COVID bullshit, kids aren't even getting a lot of kids aren't even getting, human interaction with each other at school anymore. So
Yeah,
they're it's being we're being turned into a society of just online addicts. Our brains are being programmed to look at this 16 by 9 or whatever fucking rectangle and believe and listen and obey.
that's another good point. I didn't think of that. So when all you experience is essentially this or this, you tend to believe a lot of the shit you hear and see. I mean, you know, I think that's a good point. Like whatever's on the news, you believe it because that's the way you experience the world. You have nothing else to base reality off of except what you experience throughout the majority of your day. Yeah, is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, rephrase.
Um, well, I don't interact with people very often. I choose what makes me feel comfortable because I can. And well, shit, I guess if we're talking about children, um,
It teaches complacency.
hmm.
It teaches you to be sheep.
So the prior generation, it was the television. That's what you said, or what you
Yeah.
think. Um, I guess, yeah, I guess, but we still had to go outside, though, right? Like we still had to. There was no internet when we were growing up, so
Well, the prior generation, I mean, yeah.
you didn't have
The,
TV on demand, so you didn't get to watch what you wanted to watch all
well,
the
no,
time.
prior generation would be what, Gen Z or Gen
It would be Generation
millennials,
X, Generation
Mil-
X, generate.
millennials.
Well, okay, so okay, wait, what? So I was talking about millennials and Zers. Before that is Generation X,
X, correct.
because I think Generation Y was supposed to be Generation Y, but they just ended up calling them millennials. And then
Right.
before Generation X is what, boomers?
Well, dude, the millennials are like 30 now.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that. They are, but there is a small portion of those millennials, and I don't know how they do this, but there's a small micro generation. It's actually called was it zillennials? So that's like a small portion of people. I think it's like 78 to fucking I think like 88, 87. And those people are supposed to be like cynical and because generations are based on like the years, but they're also based on characteristics that are generally shared by people in that generation, right? So I always said, like, when people would call me a millennial, I was like, there's no fucking way I'm a millennial. Like, I was born in '83. This is how I look at the world. This is what I did. I didn't, you know, dude, I'm telling you, if I would have had all this technology available to me when I was in high school, like, who fucking knows where I'd be right now? Who knows? So, people that were born, what, like in the '90s, which would be millennials, like, they is not a totally different outlook on the world, but they know more about technology than me, and so I think I fit under that little microcosm called Zillennials. Uh, but when we're talking about the television, though, like the television being the babysitter because the parents are busy, and then you brought up another point, which was
Well, even the millennials. I mean, or Gen X. The television was there, and it was almost in almost every household.
right.
Um, and they had afternoon programming, after school specials. Man, don't you remember that shit? So you could come home from school,
Mm-hmm.
latchkey kid, come home from school and do your
Mm-hmm.
homework and watch TV,
Uh huh. Mm,
or watch TV and do your homework, or
right.
watch TV and not do your homework, like some of us might have done.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, latchkey kids. Yeah, those were Gen Xers for sure.
Yep,
And you're a Gen Xer for sure, for
yep.
sure. I'm kind of like on the cusp. I like to say I'm Gen X.
You're a millennial.
Apparently I'm a millennial, but really I'm a zillennial. I'm a zillennial. Look it up. It's a thing. I'm making it a thing here right now, zillennial. Um, but dude, like even with the TV babysitting, like the Generation X is not the reason where we are as a country today. Like you still got two other generations. You've got
You've got the oh, what was the it wasn't boomers right before Gen X.
it
It was
was it was
no.
quick Google search.
I guess it was baby boomers.
Yeah, baby boomers had a big ass generation. So they were from 46 to 64. I thought it was 45 to like 60 something, but yeah, so you had boomers, X, Y/slash millennials, and then Z. And then Alpha's on the way, I guess, right?
Yep,
Alpha's on the way.
mid 2010, or yeah.
Uh, okay, so why the hell? I mean, because if we like, if you look at where the country is now, and you understand that like politics is influenced by culture, culture, you know, culture is kind of a as a big country thing. It's a big country thing, but it changes based on like generations, right? So before baby boomer generation, right? Like racism was cool and certain things were cool, and then the baby boomers came around, and they experienced a
No,
lot of
I wouldn't say it was cool. It was more prevalent,
y-
but
y-
there were still a lot of people fighting against that.
sure. And it wasn't until the boomer generation, right? Like when um, I guess civil rights started becoming a thing, and then you have enter Generation X, and nothing really radical happened with Generation X. It isn't until the last, I don't know, what, 5 6 years that they, I don't know, maybe let's go like 10 years to be generous. Like basically after Obama, whoever the hell those people were. I mean, it could be some Generation Xers, but more than likely it's the millennials, right? Because you said the millennials are in their 30s. The millennials were voting for Obama. The millennials were influencing the culture more than the Gen Xers were. Like they knew the technology. They were, just look at where music and art are now. But like, why? How was the television? I guess as a babysitter, like why didn't it affect people? I mean, because like that's like you said, that was our babysitter, right? Like so now it's just social media, internet is the babysitter. And I guess back to my original point is are the parents suffering from the same delusions of grandeur via, the internet? And because I do know a few people, not many, I just know a few people that they were kids having kids, they have kids having kids. And I know people that, I'm not going to say names, but it's like they have a baby and the baby's all of a sudden 3 and they're like, here's my phone. And I'd be like, I would never do that. I would never have my kid a fucking tablet or a phone. Probably well into their, I mean, I'd be a terrible dad. Probably well into like their teenage years, maybe. I mean, and you've experienced life more than me. What do you see around you? I mean, you lived in California, now you live in Idaho. Like, what's it like? What do you see with parents nowadays?
I don't. I kind of avoid the kids. I don't.
Like, you lived in
The,
Sacramento. That's a big city.
what's the big change
Hmm.
that happened during the millennials' life? The fucking internet, dude. That is the biggest change to our civilization,
Hmm.
because you don't just go hang out with your friends at school anymore. Now
Hmm.
you make friends online. Anybody with any little whatever quirky interest can meet up with thousands of any other people with that same quirky interest.
Hmm.
And suddenly they've got their circle of friends and their collective validation that they get from each other.
Hmm. You said that term collective. So they essentially form a collective.
To help validate themselves. And that's, I actively try to avoid being parts of collectives like that. I want to have human interaction. And sure, there's always some sorts of collectives of, like liberty-minded individuals, consider themselves a collective in a sense.
Hmm.
But um even then, I don't like the label libertarian, because first of all, the Libertarian National Party is fucking, they've got a lot of work to do. All the political parties, and just in general. So yeah, the internet is one of the greatest thing to ever happen to mankind, and also the worst thing to happen to mankind. And social media took the worst part of it and made it popular.
Hmm. I mean, I agree. Like, there's bad things that are in life, but I just don't understand. I don't understand people that have kids. I don't. You know, um, there could be some bad stuff going on. And as a responsible parent, like, you would want to know who your kid, kind of who your kid is. I mean, you should know, and who they're hanging out with, what they're doing, and these parents that are just seemingly inept to parent by, I mean, I guess old school norms. Like, you get an ass whooping if you lie, or you learn responsibility, you learn how to cook, maybe you learn how to clean. It's not even a gender sex based thing. You learn how to sustain yourself. um I mean, initially, I will say that I wouldn't brainwash my kid into thinking away, but there are things I think that are intrinsic to the development of the child's character, right? Like, they have to know right from wrong. Am I saying that, because in a sense, I guess you could look at it in like an extreme libertarianism, where you just let people do what they want to do as long as they leave you alone. Or you could look at it from like a conservative aspect. Um, but I think when it comes to kids from 0 to 18 until they're no longer legally your responsibility, I think yeah, the internet's good and it's bad, and social media is good and bad, but like, parents should be, maybe, I mean, because when you're an adult, if you didn't believe all the shit your parents were telling you, if you don't believe in a religion, if you don't believe in, then you do what you that's your choice. But you have to give them a chance. You have to educate them on how to be an adult, how to prepare for the world. Because 18 years comes and goes. And next thing you know, this person can legally vote and can purchase a firearm and can drive, and there's a lot of things this person will be capable of doing. And to me, I guess, not being a parent but being one very soon, I guess, to me it's, I want to be proud of my child. I want people to be proud of my child, but most importantly, I want my child to be able to look back at me and be proud to have been my crotch candy or my crotch fruit, whatever the hell the term was. I don't think there's a lot of that. I don't know what the word is. Institutional pride, because everything that you put into this child, good and bad, is going to come out. Your kid starts showing their ass at Walmart.
See, you said something there. Institutional pride. There should be no pride in any institution. Homeschool your fucking kids. Get them the fuck out of public school. Um, don't let them be indoctrinated.
Mm. What about this hypothetical? You have a kid, and in one scenario, and this is just you. So in one scenario, you teach your kid the value of hard work, finishing their schoolwork, whether they're homeschooled or public school, doesn't matter, private school. And then someday your kid graduates from college, gets a really nice degree, really nice job, every parent's dream, right? Don't you feel good? Doesn't that isn't that like a little? I mean, pride not. I mean, a little bit of pride's not bad, but like if you go too far down there, it's like overeating is not terribly bad, but and then when you get to the point of gluttony, it's terrible. But pride is not a bad thing. Pride can drive you to do a lot of good things. So that child.
I'm not saying that pride is bad.
Mhm.
I'm saying the institution.
Well, I don't know what to call it. Where I'm raising a child, essentially, I guess it's a familial pride. I don't know what the term is. Institutional pride for me was just instituting values, principles, religious, aspects into their life to make them an adult that I don't have to fucking worry about. An adult that's going to go do great things and doesn't need my help. Someone that's not going to embarrass me. Someone that's not going to do some. You know what I mean? Like so in this one scenario, your kid, you taught them the right way and they did the right thing, and then the other, you were just a terrible parent, and the kid ends up making it on their own anyway. Like you would feel, I guess, a little pride in both, but like the one sense, the pride would be a little diminished because you had nothing to do with that. In fact, maybe the child did absolutely everything anti to what you said and what you did, and they just realized through their own critical thinking, like, oh, my dad's a piece of shit. Don't be like my dad. Don't continue that cycle, and I'm gonna succeed. But where is that little bit of pride that parents would have that someday their kid is going to be successful, the kid is not going to need their help, and maybe one day the kid's gonna like have a beer with you and be like, you were an asshole, but I appreciate it, man. You meant well, and here I am. And you know what I mean? Like where is that? Because I think if people had some of that pride of your last name not being slandered, not being drugged through the mud, like, oh, don't trust those people, especially in the small collective.
Because they're dependent on the collective. They're dependent on the village. That whole "it takes a village to raise a child" bullshit. No, that's hokey bullshit. It takes a fucking, it takes good parenting to
Mm.
raise a child. Don't be dependent on others. Don't be dependent on others to raise your kid. Don't be dependent on others to fucking take care of you. You know, fix your own shit.
Mm-hmm. What about single parents? What's your take on that?
It's a tough gig. Um, but I think I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush because everyone's an individual and each individual circumstances are different. But I know in my situation, um, dealing with the mother of my child was really difficult, and she did anything and everything she possibly could to alienate me. And it took a long time, but my daughter finally came around and realized uh, some of the things. I'm being very vague because I talked to my daughter, and she does not want to be spoken about too much, but
Mm.
um, it just uh, it took her a long time to come around and realize, oh shit, dad's not so bad. Dad actually knows shit, and that she missed out on a lot of life lessons growing up.
Mm.
And so yeah, there's a lot there, but um so each is different. Some single parents will be dependent on the collective and the state, and want to just sit back, collect money, and so on. Others will work harder, do their best for their them and their child, and make a life and be strong about it and not be a victim. And again, I don't like, I'm not one, I don't want to paint, because I know there's extenuating circumstances in each individual situation, but in general, if you walk into a situation with a victim mindset and you know just expect handouts, then that's what it's going to be. It's just going to, you're going to be part of that system. If
Mm.
you look at the situation, say, okay, this really sucks. um I want to make positive changes in my life and for the life of my child. What can I do? And approach it that way. Sure, they may still need to get handouts of from the state, and in what welfare and what these programs were initially created for, to be a helping hand, not a lifestyle.
Mm.
So it's the mindset of the people, and you're seeing it with the different generations, and it's cultural too. um and falls down different socioeconomic lines, and so on. There's a lot of variables into that and how people were raised and whatnot. But it's still, it boils down to the mindset of the individual, whatever it may be. If they walk into the situation believing they're a victim and believing that they've gotten, that that's their life, then that there is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they look at the situation, realize it's fucked up, and want to get out of it, and approach it from, okay, from a position of, uh, what can I do to change this, then that's completely separate, and they can go on to other great things.
Yeah, that was well said. I like something you touched on. I'd like to expand is they got to want to be helped, right? Right? Like you just can't throw shit at people and expect change if they don't want to change.
Right, they have to want to change, not necessarily want to be helped, but they
Well,
have to
but
want to
some
change a situation. They have to have the positive mindset of, this is fucked up, and it needs to change, versus, oh well, I can just kick back and collect welfare, or, oh, I can just kick back and, oh well, if I have another kid, I can increase my welfare money, you
right.
know kind of thing.
And then that being said, like to me, that is part of like that familial pride that you would instill. Like like I said again, like a little bit of pride is not bad. Taking pride in what you do, like your work, being professional, being courteous, taking pride in the fact that you're a well-spoken individual, you stay well-read, um, you speak English as properly as you can. Like there's a little bit of pride, and I think I think I don't think it's being I think at some point like it just does not get passed on, and I don't think it has to be passed on like unilaterally, but like at least like a majority of people parenting need to teach kids
And
a
again, that comes to the different circumstances. There are socioeconomic circumstances, and people who say systemic racism doesn't exist, that's wrong. It does exist. However, the answer isn't to keep propping up the system. All they're doing with that, with the different reparations programs, or the different uh, affirmative action programs and things like that, is perpetuating a racist system, just a different type of racism. So instead of looking at it that way, look at the system and say, okay, well, what needs to change? First of all, wipe it out, in my opinion, but um, making it easier for people to use it as bootstrapping versus handouts, if that makes sense. What instead of providing um, $1,000 a month per kid, provide childcare. Pro, if the state's going to get involved with that kind of stuff, provide childcare. And so that the parent can go to work and or school or whatever, learn a trade, advance in life, and not just be a serf to the welfare system.
Yeah. I wanted to know, like you said, you did say systemic racism exists. So particularly, which example are you talking about? Like
Well,
what system
like
puts people like I'm uninformed.
things like the like I was saying, the socioeconomic circumstances of people. If statistically speaking, there's going to be and when I say it like this, we're breaking it down based on population numbers and things like that. But there's going to be a higher percentage of minorities who are collecting welfare, things like that. And if instead of continuing the system the way it has been, because it's obviously not fucking working, instead of just doing the welfare and universal basic income and free money from the government, which free money from the government is never fucking free. That's taken from taxpayers.
Yeah, you right, dog.
Instead of perpetuating that system, instead focus on things like the child care, so that the parents can go to school, can go to work, their kids are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
When they come home, then they do their thing. They have their family time and so on. And sure, there's still going to be things like food bank and some cash welfare to help with rent and whatever. But the system does not work the way it is now. It is profitable to just stay home and collect the welfare check.
I mean, I everything you said is true. I don't understand, and I don't know. I don't understand how that's institutionally racist. Like,
The
uh,
institution, the government is the institution,
okay,
and it's the system. The welfare system is part of said institution, and by just giving out money, just enough to keep squeaking by, and not enough for them to actually bootstrap out of it,
mm,
that is keeping people in these situations. There is creating a class of people that are just, well, tax slaves essentially.
right. So let's go that first generation then. So we'll just say the first generation, and I'm just going to assume that we're just talking single mothers, right? Because most of the people that would be benefiting from that would be single mothers, and most of those singles mothers would be in big cities, right? Based on population. So, um, why isn't the mother? I mean, yeah, okay, she's living government paycheck to government paycheck, but when she has that daughter that makes the same mistake she did, or that son that, like, where's the, I understand what you're saying as far as the government's concerned. I totally understand. I don't agree completely, but I understand that point, that thought. I don't get is like, if I see a shitty situation, like, okay, I'm gonna take the hand out. I'm gonna do what I can, but I'm gonna raise my kid to not be like that, because first of all, it's not really sustainable. Like that small paycheck, it's not sustainable. So why would you perpetuate your kid to be miserable just like you were? Why wouldn't you push your kid to do harder in school? Study, do their homework, stay out of trouble, know what your kids, the best that you can, because it seems like uh, that social welfare program was started in the '60s. Dude, this is almost where this is fucking 60 years later, and we are one generation after another. We are perpetuating, I guess we'll say, minorities, because you said it was systemic racism. They at some point, somebody's got to realize that they're fucking miserable and do something about it. Like, maybe their generation, that generation, they are lost, but their children, their progeny, like, enforce some kind of discipline, enforce some kind of pride to where your children don't end up like you are, and that's not happening. So what you're saying is true. I don't understand how it's racist, but what I'm saying is, where's that little bit of pride where it's like, every day, fucking make your bed. That's the first thing you do. Make your fucking bed. Then the next thing you do, you make yourself something to eat, and you brush your teeth, and you go to school, and you fucking pay attention, and you quit hanging around these kids that are doing the wrong thing, and you come home. I'm not going to be home. The key's going to be here. You let yourself in, and you fucking do. And when I get home from work, I'm going to check your homework to make sure you're doing your homework. And every now and then, I'm going to call your school and see how you are doing. That's the least these people could do, but they're not doing that. Kids are getting shot and killed at like 13 in gangs, and all this crazy nonsense, and kids are having kids, and the cycle just keeps going. And if you were a parent worth your salt, you wouldn't want your kids to go through the same shit you did. Like, that's the whole point of, like, not the whole point, but that's a small subset of parenting, is you don't want your kids to necessarily suffer or go through. I mean, to an extent, yes, but you want your kids to be better off than you. That's why maybe you save money, or you have nice things you want to pass on to them. You want to give your children wealth. So besides everything else you've given your children, you want to give them something physical, uh, something sentimental, but like, there's none of that, especially in the inner cities, because as you said, this perpetuates. And at some point, and I mean, you do have success stories, don't mind you. You have success, and you have this, the same problem in rural, because there's a lot of people in the rural areas too that are dirt fucking poor, having kids, tied up in drugs, tied up in violence. And so it's not just a minority thing. I think the minority thing, it's probably just maybe a bigger percentage, and it's also easier to see because it's in a city versus, like, no one's hanging out in nowhere, Missouri or Arkansas. Um, but why aren't where's that pride? Where is the parents wanting the children to be better than them? You know what? I didn't go to college, but you're gonna fucking study, and you're gonna do the right thing. You're gonna stay out of trouble. I'm gonna fucking smack you when you fuck up, and you're gonna go to college, or you're gonna go get a trade job. You're gonna join the military. You're gonna do something. You're gonna be better than me. Like, where is that? Why don't we have that? That's what I want to know.
Well, I think a big part of that also is the trap of college education. Um, everyone's encouraged in the public school system. Oh, you need to go to college. You need to get a degree. You need to, take out this loan and become a debt slave to the fucking state. Um, yeah, getting first of all, I think fixing the college debt issue can be done by the federal government no longer guaranteeing that,
Mm-hmm.
and or making it dischargeable through bankruptcy. All this, student loan forgiveness. I think what they should do instead of doing that is saying, okay, you can discharge your debt through bankruptcy. And then it is up to that individual to make that choice whether or not they want to do that, if it's worth it to them. And by no longer guaranteeing student loans, it will force the lenders to stop such predatory practices, because they're going to get end up getting saddled with a lot of loans that they're never going to collect on
Mm,
if they keep doing the same shit.
I
Oh, you want to go, spend, get a $200,000 loan to for liberal arts college. Well, fucking great. You need to have a cosigner and so a means of paying it back and yada yada yada. But they're talking about, oh well, people 18 aren't responsible enough to own a rifle, blah blah blah, or own a guns. Well, what the fuck? But they're responsible enough to take out a $200,000 loan.
I believe I heard that same argument, but it was about choosing their gender and hormones and surgery.
Well, that too, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about schools and raising children. Um,
But that whole argument for getting the government involved in student loans was based on racism. Well, these underprivileged people don't have access to college like other people do, so we need to make sure everybody has the right to education. That was how it got started. That
go
was
to
the
fucking
pitch.
community college. You don't need to take a fucking $200,000 loan out for a liberal arts degree.
I totally agree. Go to community college, get all the 2 year
Go to
shit
trade
done.
school.
Totally agree. I don't think there's. I just know that like getting rid of it is that's an uphill battle because now you're going to be fighting against the people that say that minorities weren't able to go to college without it because they couldn't afford it, which I know a lot of majority people that can't afford college and capitalized on the student loans, but that was how the argument was made. It was made, well, you have all these minorities, they can't go to college, they can't build a future. They're stuck in the inner city having babies, not being married, going to jail, shooting people, doing drugs. If we give everybody access to college, then this will fix the problem. And here we are.
Sure, give everybody access to college. There's grants and scholarships and funding for community college as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the people who'd scream the most about it are the people in those systems who are indoctrinating our college students and making money off of it. Those are the ones who are going to complain the most. Oh, well, you're gonna, the liberal arts professor. Oh, well, you're gonna keep people from taking liberal arts and blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, because it's not a viable fucking source of income. If they want to take it, then they need to agree to pay that fucking money back and not expect taxpayers, victims of tax theft,
Mm-hmm.
to fucking put the bill for them.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with someone taking like minoring in liberal arts. I don't, but like that should definitely not be a major. That shouldn't be what you bank your existence and contribution to the collective. I mean, it's just it's not a even a, even in a non-regulated capitalistic society. Okay, in a non-regulated, which isn't the case here, but in a pure capitalistic society, the only place there would be a need for those is just to teach more people that shit. And I just say shit because not because it's shit, but that line of ideas and reasoning and educational thought processes, like there would be no need for that. There's no need to um like in reality, like you can't really run a business on Asian American studies. You can't run a business on, I mean, you may be able to run a business on, what is that thing that what's that shit Pineapple does, like graphic design? Isn't that like, that would be like a liberal arts thing, right? Maybe
You can run
marketing.
a business on graphic design,
You can. There's a select few. Maybe actually
and
be.
that would not be liberal arts.
Yeah, what would it be? What is graphic design?
Graphic arts.
That's not a liberal arts degree.
don't believe so.
Okay, I've, I've been wrong before, but yeah, this, yeah, everything you said, but yeah, um, yeah, dude, I trying to get one more thing in before the buzzer. Um, how about I just ask you? I just gonna ask you a question. So, if there was, if you were the czar of the United States for one day, I guess based on the topic we've been talking about, if there was one thing on this day you sign an executive order or whatever, because I think we're on the same boat. I'd like to. Are we on the same boat as far as like we realize that shit is out of control at the core function being parenting, or do you think there's some other thing in this equation that we should look at probably in a future podcast?
What do you mean?
Well, do you agree? Like as you keep saying the great divorce. Well, we're about to have the great divorce, right? But we're here. I said my argument is because essentially it's parenting, right? That's my argument. My argument is you have people that are feeling entitled. You have people that have no pride in what they do. They don't want to get a job. They want a free check. They expect stuff from other people, stuff from the state. So that is my basis of where we are today. You agree or disagree with that?
I mean, there's so many variables,
There
and
are
just
the largest variable.
yeah, some yeah, for the most part.
Okay, so now you're czar for a day. You have an executive order to change something. So what is your
Anything
well in this regard, everything we've talked about the past hour. What is your executive order?
abolish the Federal Reserve.
So unrelated.
Because
Why didn't you
no, it
just
is related
okay?
because because it will trickle down to everything, including child rearing. It would force a um, monetary system that is fights the inflation. Um, it would empower the individual again, and that alone would in doing that it would increase the value of one's own labor. So that alone would help with the wealth inequity and things like that.
So if you got rid of a fiat currency and we were based on some kind of standard, maybe a precious metal of some sort, you're saying that the value of your labor, the market at some point would correct, and parents of children would their labor would be worth more, and then they would what? Are you saying they'd work less hours and they'd be home more, or are you?
They could work less hours, be home more, or they could work the same amount of hours and have more money to put towards building a better future for their child or
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's an interesting take. Did not see. I mean, I could tell you as the czar of the United States that you would shortly join the ranks of JFK by doing so. So, um, good luck with that, sir.
Rothschilds don't scare me.
Uh, but give us the final word, sir.
Just be responsible for yourself. Take care of your own shit. You know, teach your children liberty. Teach your children that the individual is most important. Turn off the fucking TV. Turn off the fucking internet. Spend FaceTime with your children, and don't fall in the trap of using the TV or internet as a babysitter.
What
Go
about?
the fuck outside.
Yes, thank you. I was saying, what about kicking them outside? Thank you.
Go the fuck outside. And if more people did that, and I mean, think about it. Half the shit people say online, they'd never say to someone else's face.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking have face to face conversation, interact with people, and learn to be a fucking human. And don't forget that taxation is theft.
Thank you. You already said that earlier, but I knew you were going to say it again. Uh, Thank you everybody for tuning into the show. If you could go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, comment,
But
and
yes, give us that dopamine rush.
yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, dopamine rush, and share us with friends and family. We appreciate all 21 of you, and look forward to having 21 more of you. So again, thank you for tuning into the show. I'm Jake.
I'm Drake.
And this is Jake and Drake Show. We'll see y'all next week.